It actually worked out a little bit backwards for us because we didn't start at the top and go down. We started at the bottom and went up.
You can't teach experience, right?
Marketing in a saturated market, you have to have and you have to be good at it. And you have to have somebody that is good at it and consistent.
And we live, episode 3 of the Mission Control podcast, brought to you by yours truly, Mike Stearns with Ascend Digital Agency. Today we've got a very special guest, Mr. Austin Fricker with A. Fricker Roofing. Austin, welcome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on today, brother.
Dude, I appreciate you being here. Anyone that's willing to spend more than 5 minutes in a room with me, I give them a lot of credit. So we appreciate you. So
Take practice.
There you go. Every day is an opportunity to grow. So you're in the Tulsa, Oklahoma market. What got you into roofing?
Man, kind of a crazy story to be honest. I got in some trouble in my past. They sent me to a center where I got to be a roofer for a small local roofing company in the area. And that was just kind of the start. It was kind of, it was a blessing for sure, but it was one of those things where I absolutely hated it at the beginning. I wasn't selling roofs, I wasn't managing projects. I was literally hand nailing shingles all day, every day. So that was my start.
Okay, perfect. So how long ago was that?
Oh, 7 years, 8 years.
7, 8 years. Okay, that's quite some time ago.
Yep.
So what did the road from coming from that point to where you're at now, what does that road look like for Austin?
Okay, so unlike most people in the ownership of a roofing company, I feel like these days is somebody starts off in sales, maybe a project manager, then they have a lot of clients that go out on their own. Maybe they have a background in marketing, and then they want to try ownership. Mine was just a little bit different, and I mean it is normal this way. Maybe it's a little bit more old school though. So, like I said before, I was just out there hand nailing shingles all day, every day for a local roofing company out of Ada, Oklahoma. Then, I got a girlfriend, kid, things like that. They were in Tulsa. Tulsa's a much bigger market. Ada's like 10,000 people. Greater Tulsa's like a million. So, I decided to move back to Tulsa, got into the commercial roofing industry. Also, still as a laborer, applicator, worked my way up at that company to a foreman, superintendent, things like that. And then from that point, I started getting some side work, some repairs, things like that. And the company I worked for only did commercial, no exceptions for any reason. So a lot of what we did was somebody that we did commercial work for had a residential property, and the company couldn't fit those needs. So I would get leads like that. And then one day I was just like, I can't take this on anymore. It's just too much. Working 10, 12 hours a day there, getting off work, picking my son up from daycare, rolling around with my son, doing repairs in the truck, things like that. It just got to be too much. And then COVID hit, and I was like, okay, yep, it's time. Going out on my own. And then from there, it's just been counting blessings, just blowing up left and right.
Yeah, that's amazing. So just for context, you're in what year of your company?
We've been in business for 2.5 full years.
Okay, perfect. And what did you finish at last year? What are you projected to finish at this year?
We did 2.4 year one, 3.9 year two, and this year we're definitely going to do over 5. Our push goal is 6.05. It's a very exact number, but that's what we're pushing for. But I know for sure we're doing 5.
I mean, that's really good year-over-year growth. Have you been able to keep your margins where they need to be?
It's kind of funny because at the beginning, whenever I was actually on the roofs, installing the roofs with my guys, I was charging. I mean, I'd never had any experience in estimating, sales, finances, marketing, none of that. So what I would do is, okay, I got my materials. It's going to take me a day and a half with these 3 guys plus myself. That's going to cost me, this much money. and I want to make $800 in a day and a half. And to me, that was like insane. I was stoked
Sure.
about that. So that's what it was like at the beginning. You know, if I made $4,000 on a roof, that was just insane. I was ecstatic. So then year two, I brought on sales reps, project manager, things like that. Got an office, got multiple trucks. So at that point, I realized, okay, whatever I'm doing before, I can't do roofs and make $1,000 anymore. I'm not going to keep my head above water. So then we started getting into insurance work, supplementing, things like that, growing our maintenance and repair division. And so then our profit margins really went from like 10 to 20% to 20 to 30%. And now they're more like 30 to 40%, which, you know, it's kind of hard to think about because you're like, okay, the bigger you get, the lesser especially whenever you're in that growth phase, the bigger you get, the less you're going to make because you're spending all this money on marketing dollars, hiring guys or girls where there's a high turnover, investing in sales reps, training, things like that, and then it doesn't work out. That's just money down the drain. So it actually worked out a little bit backwards for us because we didn't start at the bottom or at the top and go down. We started at the bottom and went
Interesting.
up.
Yeah, that's an atypical path, I'd say, for sure. So look, you mentioned something that grabbed my interest, and I've heard a lot of debates on both sides of this, and you mentioned like a repair service division, right? So
Yes.
when did it get to the point where you found the value enough to dedicate roles for this within your company?
So, you know, like I said earlier, I used to do repairs myself for the company and on the side and things like that. The first company I worked for, they do a little bit of repairs, but I wasn't ever the one doing them. The second huge commercial company I worked for, they had a huge maintenance and repair division. I mean, their repair division was the same size as their production division, like man for man, truck for truck. So I knew that there was money in it. I knew that there was a way to make that a vehicle for growth, especially in the commercial world. I didn't realize that there's such a high demand in residential because, like I said, I didn't really know anything about the roofing industry other than putting them on. So I didn't realize that most companies don't have a repair division. That was something I didn't really understand, that a lot of companies didn't do that. I always thought, you know, somebody needs a repair, you sell them a repair, or you just
Sure.
do the repair so you can get the roof later. Just what I thought. Um, and then the more and more I started noticing, people were like, well, I called 5 people, 3 of them showed up. One of them gave me an estimate for a new roof, but all I really need is I got 4 missing shingles. You know, it was things like that. And I was like, okay, I'll charge you $800 to swap out a few shingles. And it was just quick, easy money. Then whenever I got so busy that I just couldn't get to all that, plus estimating, plus managing my guys, and trying to grow the business, I brought on an old employee or an old coworker of mine from that big roofing company. He started doing it. He brought on his son-in-law. He started doing it, and then now we've grown the department to where we run 2, sometimes 3 trucks, depending how we want to split up the guys. But we have them in 2-man crews for safety reasons. And I mean, I don't know where I would be without our repairs.
Yeah, no kidding. There's such a high demand, and like I bring a different perspective. I've never been in roofing per se, right? I've been in the industry via marketing, and I always tell people like the search volume. A lot of consumers just, you know, naturally they look for the cheapest option, right? It's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So they might be looking for a
Yeah.
roof repair, and maybe it is a replacement, but they don't want to come to grips with the fact that they got to replace their 30-year-old roof, right? Because we know how much money it costs. It's not cheap.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What I found is that a lot of people struggle with getting people in place to actually do it and doing it in a way that's profitable because, you know, there's higher margins, but finding somebody who's consistently okay with doing repair work, right? It seems to be challenging for a lot of people. So you have how many people within your repair division total?
5 right now.
And one came from someone you used to work with, so that's a great relationship to have. You got some trust there, reliability, right? And that person, you said, brought in 2 more people? Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome. So where did the other 2 come from? Where did you have luck finding them?
A lot of trial and error, to be honest. That's the
Yeah.
truth. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie, man. The repair tech position is probably the one position that has the highest turnover of helpers, not of
Okay.
foremen. We've had the same foremans, but helpers, man, they just rotate whenever the seasons
Okay.
do. I mean, we're in Oklahoma. It's 104 degrees out. You get on a roof, it's just insanely hot. If you're not used to being a roofer,
Good luck.
it's going to be hard for you, man. You're not going to make it long. Or if you do, we know you're a
Right.
keeper. Seriously, because anybody that can do that is worth keeping, worth paying more, just for the fact that they're that dedicated to push through stuff like that, push through the sunburns, I mean,
Yeah.
everything. Um, and so another thing that we've done is we really just try to, if somebody has a friend or family member that they can bring on, after 90 days, they get a check for bringing somebody
Hmm.
on. Because what we found is, employees from referrals seem to work out a little bit better for whatever reason. That just kind of seems to be what's worked out for us. Because whenever we hire somebody that filled out, something on Google or sent us a Facebook message, they just saw something coming across their news feed. They clicked on it to see what it was about, but they're really not all that interested. But if I'm like, hey, Mike, you got any friends or family that wants to be a repair tech or, get into roofing or whatever the case is, like, you know what, my buddy used to do roofing. He's at a job right now. He was complaining about how he's only making, $11 an hour. Man, let me hit him up. Okay. Well, now we're talking about something. We got him in the office to talk to us face to face. And that's somebody that, just like like a customer lead. If you just give them a price over the phone, what are the odds that they're actually gonna follow through? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or if it's somebody that knows somebody says, "Hey, I'm coming out to look at this," and then you give them a price face to face, your odds of closing are so much
Right.
higher.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like the bird of a feather thing, right? Like they flock
Yeah.
together, right? So if you have somebody who's a good
Yep.
employee in whatever capacity or role that you have within your company, and you want more of those people, same thing with a lead, right? If you get a referral from somebody who you did a roof for, it's likely going to close, and they're likely going to be comparable as far as the quality of that lead, right?
Yes,
So
for sure.
yeah, that's really interesting. So you started out hand banging shingles, right? Kind of doing it, as you go. I think a lot of people, through my experience and what people have told me, and this is like in all business, was like everybody
Yeah.
wants to be the boss until they're the boss, right? And then they really see what comes with, being able to go on that 4-day vacation. They don't look at the fact that it's been 3 years since you've left your zip code, right? Or the 15-hour days that you've been putting in for the last 3 years. So has it been everything that you wish for, looking back in hindsight?
Oh man. I had a completely different perspective of what it was going to be
Sure.
like. But I mean, I was not signing up for what I got, just to be honest. It was a completely different situation. So in my mind, what I was envisioning was I would go to work, I would put on roofs in the afternoons or evenings, I would go do estimates or whatever, and then I'd go to sleep, get up and do it all over again. I'd have a few guys that I would roof with, and things, and my wife would help me maybe with the books or marketing or something like that. Well, I didn't realize that it wasn't just that simple, especially in a big market like
Yeah.
Tulsa. I didn't think about finances. I didn't think about really what marketing takes. I mean, marketing's a completely different industry, just like finances is, but like marketing in a saturated market, you have to have and you have to be good at it, and you have to have somebody that is good at it and
Right.
consistent. Um, and another thing is I didn't realize how much money it was going to take to work at the level that I thought I was going to be able to at the beginning, because it takes an insane amount of capital to be able to get up to there. So I started my company with $12,000 to our family's name.
$12,000.
That was it. Yeah, so I would do a roof, and I had a credit line of $5,000 because I did not have I had never had a loan, never had a car payment, credit card, so I had no credit. that was the issue too. So I had to build up credit. I was lucky enough to get a $5,000 credit line. Have to do a roof, get paid super fast, buy materials for the next one, go do it, get paid super fast. And it was like that for the first few months. Luckily, we had a good hailstorm right after I started my own business. But, you know, for the first 2 years, I was working literally, you remember, man, like 16 hours a day. You call me at 9, I answer. You call me at 5, I answer. And I'm probably in the truck doing
Yeah.
something. I mean, that's where I lived. Um, Now that I'm at year 2.5, getting, inching up on the 3 year mark, I think that I'm starting to actually get to the point where I want to be, where I can let go of my guys. I empower them to be able to do things on their own without me being. And I always take this word from one of my coaches, Nathan Tabito. The first time I ever met him, he said, "Yeah, man, you're the choke point of your company."
Mm.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
I was the choke point. I was the Google of the company, and I still am to a degree. We're going through a lot of restructuring, coaching, training processes to change that so that I can do more of the portion that I want to do, which is ironically out with my
Right.
guys.
How tough is that for you?
What,
Yeah.
letting go?
I gotta tell you, man, I am a complete control freak, right? So
Me too. I
I
am.
know the struggle that I've had and still have. It's an everyday struggle to like be cognizant of that, be self-aware, and like you got to let this go, you got to let that go, and it's like an internal tug of war that takes place, right?
Yes, dude, it is so hard. So I always try to go off of, if they can do it 80% as good as I can do it, then they can do it. That's good enough, which you're never going to find anybody that does it as good as you do. But over time, they may do it better than you
That's a
do.
really good point.
And that's the
Yeah.
truth. Is they've got, somebody, there's been a few people that gave me the opportunity and empowered me along my path. And if they would never have done that, I don't know how I would have been able to achieve what I have so far. So that's one thing that, I really do try to work on is letting go, empowering them, letting them do their thing. But man, whenever it comes down to like estimating, that's a scary thing, man. You don't want them bidding, $150,000 roof at 110,000, and really it costs 115 to do the
Right.
job, you know, because then you're locked into that roof and you're married to that roof for 2, 3 to 5, maybe even 10 years, whatever kind of warranty you put
Yeah.
on that.
A lot at
Um,
stake.
and man, that's a scary thought. But on the flip side, man, the way that I look at it is I never went to college. So I'm looking at it as the first 4 years of business are the first 4 years of college for me. I'm going to have to pay some
Yeah.
dues. I'm going to have to get my degree, you know?
Hey, man, you can't teach experience, right? So you get out there, get after
No,
it, and I mean, it served you well thus far. So keep up the good work.
I've been pretty
Yeah.
fortunate.
So you mentioned a coach. You said Nathan Tabito.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
one of them. And then I also have John Townsend.
What is the name of the outfit they work with?
Contractor Coach Pro. It's Jim Johnson's
Okay, cool.
outfit. I mean, man, they're great.
So when did you realize that you would benefit from what a coach would bring to the table?
Okay, so after year one, whenever I started bringing in sales reps, I knew I wasn't a good sales rep. I just sold my roofs based on being a roofer. I was really knowledgeable. So I hired a company to do sales
Okay.
training. We did that for a year. Then my guys learned how to sell. That's great. That's awesome. But then I started thinking about, I really don't know how to grow a business. Like people go to college, people spend their whole life in business to figure out how to grow a business.
And a lot of them still don't know.
So, yeah, exactly. I don't know if I do,
No.
honestly. But then I was like, I think, and then I ran into John Townsend at RoofCon, and we just started talking, talking more about the ins and outs of the business, not just specifically sales. And whenever he started pointing things out, it really made sense. And really, whenever he asked me, like, hey, do you want to keep, working 12 to 15 hours a day every day? Because you're not going to make it doing that. That's whenever I was like, you're right, man. I need somebody that's done this before that can give me some shortcuts to achieve what I'm trying to achieve, which is not working 120 hours a week, not working 7 days a week, having time with my family, having time with friends, and also just knowing how to manage my business, keep an eye on all the aspects that I need to keep an eye on, and create structure and processes so that all of my guys can do the best that they can do.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's your obligation to do that as their leader, right? Yeah,
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
So what are some of the key takeaways, like the biggest pivots that you've made from your pre-coaching days to now that you've kind of had some outside help from people that have done it before? What have been the biggest, I guess, impacts that it's made?
Well, impacts, I mean, obviously, it's hard in my opinion, growing a company past the $4 million mark is really hard. Like, you can have 1 to 4, relatively easy, but going past that 4, I mean, that's a lot of volume. That requires a lot of moving
Mm-hmm.
parts that I didn't realize were required. They brought a lot of that to light that I didn't even realize that we were doing, but we weren't necessarily doing them
Sure.
right. Um, and then also just how granular you have to be with things in order to teach somebody else how to do that. That's a huge thing that I didn't realize how granular I had to break down every single thing on every single process to figure that out. Now, on the flip side, that's more of the business stuff, but more of the like me stuff um, is I didn't have a mission statement. I didn't. We had our core values, but we didn't have them wrote on the wall. Not everybody that walked in the door knew them. We'd have new guys come in that weren't, upholding them, and we didn't really know. We know the value of our each individual person's core values, but there's something else about having a team that has the same core
Yeah.
values. It operates
Mm-hmm.
differently. You know, they think about situations differently. It's a whole nother culture, and that and building up our culture, them helping me to become a better leader, that's a whole nother deal. Leadership obviously is something that you have to work on day after day after day after day, and you have a journey. It's a long
Yeah.
term thing, and whenever you figure out, okay, I've gotten to this phase of being a leader, but maybe there's a reason why I'm not getting the buy-in that I should be, and it's not because they're not buying in, it's because I'm not doing what I need to so they can buy in.
Mm.
And that was kind of like an epiphany moment. Like, I need to grow more as a person, as a leader, as an owner, as a husband, as a father, so that I can be a better leader for my guys.
It's not always the easiest thing to do, right? Yeah.
No, that's the hardest
Yeah.
part.
There's no doubt about it. What would you say has been the most challenging aspect, as you've progressed from the very beginning to where you're at now through the journey?
Say that again.
What would you say has been the most challenging aspect, whether it's a thing, a group of things that you've experienced from going to, just hand banging shingles at 8 o'clock at night to running a $5 to $6 million company?
Man, that's pretty hard because there's a lot of
Yeah.
hard things. I mean, really, it's like every aspect is pretty difficult. For me, it was outside of just the roofing, and sales came naturally to me because I was a roofer, so I had an in with knowledge. So that was pretty simple for me to figure out. But man, that's a tough one,
That's all I
brother.
did. I'm
That's not an
I'm
easy
glad I could
one.
stump you a little bit.
I, Yeah, I would say the most challenging thing is, well, for sure in roofing, most roofers can relate to this. You know, Insurance takes 30, 45, 60 days to pay. You have all these different bills you got to pay. You got all these different commissions you got to pay. You got all these, just a whole bunch of things you got to, where money's going out. And your goal is to keep jobs coming in, which equals money going out. Well, in the process of that, it's like, well, it's kind of difficult to do like a month's end or a year's end because your money can be so strung out. So figuring out the numbers of where we need to be, where we should be, um, and where we're at, and how much money can go into marketing, how much money can go into truck allowances, how much money can go into a new office. Can we start stocking shingles in bulk? Things like that. That's kind of just something that's been hard for me to wrap my mind around. But something for me that's the hardest thing for me to actually get up and do is creating that damn process. That is the most mind-numbing, bearish thing. I mean, it's like looking at a spreadsheet with nothing but numbers all day, every day, except for it's only been 10
Right.
minutes. It's so difficult, and it's because what you're trying to do is you're trying to put what you do in the real world onto paper, but without actually doing it and sitting behind a desk. And make it relatable to every situation.
Yeah.
Like writing a book.
Yeah, it's challenging, right? Because, we have all this stuff in our head, right? And there's an assumed level of knowledge of the next person that they're going to have. Maybe they're going to be here, here, here in the learning curve. And it's like, you kind of have to assume everyone's starting from zero, create your process from there. And then, like you said, once you have the process, I think of it kind of like a teacher, right? You can have a teacher of any subject, and it could be the most interesting thing in the world. But if that teacher doesn't know how to teach in a way that's going to engage their audience, and people respond differently to different things. So if she can't get that audience engaged, that shit doesn't matter because nobody's going to pay attention to retain the information. Not nobody, but there's going to be a much smaller percentage of people that will actually be focused on what he or she is actually trying to teach them, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely agree with that 100%. Like, honestly, here's a good example. Whenever you give me advice on things, which is crazy, I don't know why I would take advice from you, but I listen. I really do. But whenever I've talked to the marketing people that we've hired in the past, man, I'm not with it. It just kind of doesn't seem like they're as bought in, and I think that does come down to, is this person truly invested in this situation or this company or this person? Because I feel like you can really tell if somebody's truly invested in something versus somebody's just going through the motions and things like that. Like you said, teacher, if they're truly invested in their class, the class can tell.
No doubt about it.
They're trying to make moves to prove it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's smart. So you're doing residential, you're doing commercial, you've got your repairs, you've got your replacements, you're doing a ton of marketing. Like, what's the end game for A. Fricker Roofing?
Well, it used to be, up until probably 5 or 6 months ago, we wanted to grow a lot more. But again, backing up to the leadership and backing up to being a better husband, father, leader, I just don't think I can have my fingers on the pulse like I should this early in our career and in our business's life to grow too much more than we are right now. We wanted to be a 20, 30, $40 million company, and now that I've realized what that takes, really, if you have a big enough bankroll and some good solid people, I feel that just about anybody can do that. Dump money into marketing, have plenty of crews, things like that. But what I'm really wanting is a well-oiled machine where everybody within the company is financially free, has their freedom from just being able to walk out the door and be able to think about other things, being able to take off work, able to go home and be a husband and be a father and things like that. And so we really want to stick around the $5 to $8 million range. We don't want to get any bigger than maybe even 7, just so that we can really get what we're doing down really, really well. Make sure that all of our guys are happy. We're all constantly growing, and that we're just being as efficient as possible, and not just throwing money into something so we can keep growing and growing and growing and growing, I'd rather make sure that we're very profitable at this number before we try to be profitable at this bigger number. So I'm wanting to stay around the, like I said, $5 to $8 million range. Make sure everybody is where they want to be personally and professionally, and just create a very efficient machine.
Yeah, I think so. Let me ask you this: what was when you wanted to be 20, 30, $40 million company? What was the thought behind that?
I don't really know. Like, it was one of those things where I just always thought more is better. Bigger is better. And the more I've learned and the more people I've talked to that are at that level or bigger than that level, it comes down to really they're like, I'm making just as much as I was whenever I was at 8 million or 9 million. And now we're at 23 and I make the same amount of money except for I'm a whole
way
lot
more
busier.
headaches.
And that's
yeah. I said way more headaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just doesn't sound appealing. Like, who wants to make the same amount of money but do way more work?
Well, I think part of it has to do with like ego, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think about when I was in high school or shortly thereafter, and I'm like, I want to be able to bench 315 pounds, right? Why? That shit doesn't matter, right? It's like the least functional strength I think that, I could acquire is bench pressing, right? I'm not an offensive lineman. I'm not doing anything where, like, this motion is really going to help me, but, like, it's really cool to say that I could bench 315 pounds, right? And then, like, then I started getting older, and as I would bench, and try to lift heavy, like, good Lord, my shoulder is killing me, right? Like, my body's breaking down, and now it makes even less sense to, like, lift heavy. So, now I lift with, like, 135 pounds, and, I do high reps, and maybe I'll do 225, but, like, I'm not pushing for any huge max just because there's not value in that to me, and I realize that it's really just an ego thing. For me, in that instance, is the only thing that's pushing that want to get to that level that I initially thought that I wanted to be at. So what I'm saying is I'm old and weak now is what
Yeah. Well, I gathered that. I've seen you play basketball before.
Yeah. Still got a jump shot though.
Yeah, you do, man. Hey, you can drink 3 pointers. Man, it was one of those things. Like I said, we were doing some coaching, and they had me write out my dream. And I wrote out this dream. I put all this thought into it and stuff like that. And I, did it how I was supposed to. And then I brought it back to him, and we started going over like all the different things on my dream that I wanted to. That was my dream. And they're looking at it, and they're like, "Well, it kind of looks to me like this is kind of your life now. Like you've got all these things." Mm-hmm. And some of them were, quite a bit of them were materialistic, and I mean, to me, I thought they were well thought out, but they realistically weren't. And so whenever I'm looking at what I thought wanted to be my dream, okay, that's my dream, and I can do all that right now. But what about the other side of it? Am I going to have all that and just kill myself working all day, every day, exhausted, not there mentally for anything else other than work? And I was like, okay, that was kind of like the aha moment, like, okay, this is supposed to be about more than just achieving this. It's about achieving this and having a peace of mind and enjoying life and just having fun, man. That was a huge thing. I didn't have as much fun that second year. Now that I'm past that second year, I'm starting to be able to loosen up, relax, go home, turn the phone off, things like that. Now I just get to enjoy things more because you know how it is, man. Especially at the beginning, you're all uptight, tense, anxious. And if you can shake that but still have all the perks of owning your own business, I think that's what most people are really after. That's what they need, actually. They may not know that that's what they're after because they really want to get that new truck, that big old house, things like that, but that's what they really need is a big truck, big house, and he's
yeah, exactly. Well, time's the one resource we can't replenish, we can't buy more of, right? So it's like, and me personally, as I've gotten older, I become more and more aware of that each day, and I've for a long time had valued my time, but again, it gets increasingly more valuable to me as I know that day after day, it sounds morbid, but I have less of it, right? To look forward to. So I think that's a really interesting point, and I couldn't agree more with it. Man, if only we could buy more time, right? Make the days 28
No
hours.
kidding, man. Yeah, I think there's a movie about that
There
though.
might be. It might be one or two. So
Yeah, I think that's just
what is like? Let's talk adversity, right? So you in running your
Yeah.
business, like I've been here for a good part of it, and have seen you weather storms, both literal storms in Tulsa, right, and the proverbial storms. Let's talk. Where did you develop your strength, your mental strength from to endure what it's taken you to get your business to this point?
Man, I'll tell you, it's crazy to say. I was actually, like we were talking about health, I actually went to the doctor for the first time in like 10 years today, drew blood, all that stuff. But, um, man, I was telling the doctor about this because, I got to tell him my whole medical history and stuff. And so I was a drug addict. And if for anybody that's ever been a drug addict, they know, like, hey, that's hard. That's a hard life to
Yeah.
live. I was a hustler and things like that. And I mean, I went through things that I hope to God nobody else I know has to go through. And a lot of that, ironically, developed a lot of my mental strength. And then going to jail, spending a long time in jail, and then getting shipped off to being away from my family. And all I did was roofing while I was gone for $0.
Right.
Didn't get to keep a single dollar of it. Um, in that 2.5 year span where I was, caught up in drugs, living a crazy hard lifestyle, being really hard on myself, to going to jail, spending a long time in jail, to going to a work center, doing nothing but roofing, and then wearing that kind of on my back is like, oh, he's an addict. He's 20 whatever years old. All he is a roofer, things like that. I learned how to shake a lot of things off and how to really pay attention to who I was supposed to be and not what I became. And once I started realizing that, who I'm supposed to be is this really strong person that's capable of accomplishing whatever they want to accomplish. All they have to do is continue taking the next step. And no matter what kind of distractions are around or what kind of hurdles there are, as long as you keep taking that next step like you're supposed to, that's your training. You've been trained to get to where you are now so that you can overcome whatever's in front of you. And so, like I said, it's ironic that drug addiction gave me the strength to help me get to where I am now. But it really, that's where it all started. And then also, obviously, like my
Yeah,
family,
of course.
like that's a
Sure.
huge part. Is having them as a huge
Yeah.
confidence booster.
Yeah, for sure. So how long have you been drug free?
About 7 years.
That's amazing. Congratulations, brother. I talked about it recently with another guest, and I was an addict at one point, and I guess you would say I'm in recovery, and it is tough, and I feel very fortunate to be sitting here with you today and having this conversation for both of us, right? Because it's not easy, and my question to you is, what has helped sustain that? Do you ever feel like it's more challenging at sometimes than others? Are there certain things you do to cope when things get tough for those out there that might be dealing with a similar issue?
Man, it's one of those things where we we get so caught up in our life, being so busy and things like that, that sometimes at least I am. I'm a little bit guilty of neglecting what's really on my mind sometimes, and only whenever I relax do I actually feel what's on my mind. And so, a big part of what got me through it at the beginning was just work, 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 work. Try to do more, 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 more. And so I think that may honestly be another factor of why I wanted to have that 20, 30, $40 million company, is because slowing down wasn't in me, because then it would give me the ability to think about things I didn't want to think about,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then, another portion of it was, whenever you are responsible of other people's like well-being or finances or things like that, like if I screw up today, and relapse, what happens to all the people in our company that we've built up to this point? You know, what happens to all of our customers that have warranties through us? What happens to all the people that refer us on Facebook when we have 10 referrals on one Facebook post? You know, how am I going to make those people look if somebody finds out, oh yeah, he's back onto this or he's back onto that? And so just that is what helped me hold myself accountable to my actions, to my thoughts, and just knowing that, hey, that's something, it's almost like that was a completely different person almost. Like obviously once an addict, always an addict, but it's like that was a completely different person who I was.
Yeah.
Now I'm back to being Austin Fricker, who I'm supposed to be, who I want to be, who my friends and family want me to be. But yeah, I mean, I hope that answers the question.
I mean, it's an amazing answer, dude. It's like I said, I know how challenging it is, and you know, people cope with things in different ways, and people have different, you know, methods to dealing with things. And I think that it's important for, you know, people that might be watching this or may watch this in the future to know, like, this isn't something that you should not try to deal with. You're not alone. Like, other people have been here, and just to shed some perspective on what's worked for you, I think, you know, if it can make a difference for one person, I think that's a huge win, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I mean, really, ultimately, that's the goal, man. Is if you can change one life, I mean, what is better than that?
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, what is better than changing somebody's life, changing the direction of their life? That's why we try our best to hire people in recovery, and as one person would probably assume, that creates issues because especially when they're early in recovery, a lot of people relapse. I mean, the success rate of getting off certain drugs is like insanely low. So that's a hurdle we've had to overcome because, you know me, man, I always want to help people, go out of my way for people, things like that. And so it sucks whenever you do that for somebody and then boom, they relapse and then kind of make you look stupid in the process. And then now you're stuck with your pants down because you're like, well, now I got one repair tech. He can't go out by himself. So you put me in a bind whenever I was trying to help you. But all that to say, the people that we have helped that are on the right path, especially now, I mean, the credit doesn't go to us. They do all that on their own. But those people are what make it worth it. You know what I mean? And the fact that we still tried. We did our best.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty incredible, man. It's, you know, having empathy for people and taking a chance on people. Like, we, at some point or another, we've all needed a second, or in my instance, a third or fourth chance, right? Like,
yeah, I know. That was me, man.
yeah, you know, and so, you know, some of us are stubborn and some are less stubborn, and, you know, it takes all types. So I think it's amazing to be able to bring to the community that mindset and that open-mindedness and be willing to embrace those that need help and give them an opportunity because, like you said, if you're talking specifically about addiction, even, you know, more specifically, certain types of drugs, they have a higher relapse rate. But if nobody ever gives them a shot, what is the likelihood that they break through, right? So you're doing an incredible service to those people and the community around you by doing that. So I applaud that. And
oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not in Tulsa, but I'm grateful for it because, you know, I think we need some more of that positive energy in this world, quite honestly.
For sure. And you know as well as I do, man, it's hard to stay positive sometimes whenever you're in a business, whenever there's 10 fires going on. Like, you just want to pull your hair out, and then somebody just asks like a simple question, you're like, oh my God, you are so annoying me right now. But it's really not even them, you know what I mean? And so it can be difficult sometimes to keep trying to do good whenever you're so busy. But what we've come to find out is if we keep trying to just donate our value and donate what we're capable of doing that will help people, then the money comes on the back end every time. It just comes back. So that's why, I mean, we do a lot of free repairs. You know, if I go see a customer and they just need something basic, I'll just do it right then. If that's somebody that's in need, you know, or if a cheerleading team needs uniforms, yeah, we'll do it. Or a baseball team, or a shelter, or the whole town freezes like it did. We're not built for the cold here in Oklahoma. If there's an inch of ice, we are shut
Right.
down.
Yeah,
So
us here in Buffalo
that
too.
happens. Well, what happens is a lot of the homeless people, man, they're stuck out in that. You know what I mean? They really are. The shelters are full, so noticing that, trying to help those people, trying to go out of the way for those people. I mean, even though that's giving away money, it's not bringing in money. It still will help you get to your end result at the end of the day. Somehow, in some way, it just happens.
Yeah.
You just have to have faith.
Well, and it's like, you can't always, like, the value of something you can't always quantify and put into a spreadsheet, right? So, if you
Exactly.
could wake up in the morning and feel good about the person that you're seeing, right, and the skin that you're living in, it's an unbelievable amount of value in what that does for your mind and how that helps you continue to do right, make good choices, do the right thing, and just feeling as if you're making a difference, right, on yourself, for your family, for the community. Like, that stuff is super powerful, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it feels good, man. I'd like to say sometimes that we do it for them, but man, you do it because it makes you feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's why I do it, is because it makes me be at peace with myself, and it makes me feel good, gives me fulfillment, and I mean, that's something that it's like actually helping a customer versus just selling a customer something. I mean, I'm guilty of just selling a customer something that they probably didn't need. But also, whenever you are able to truly help somebody at the end of it, and they just have all this gratitude, they'll tell your name to every person that walks by their house. That's the good feeling that I'm always searching
Yeah,
for.
and then the byproduct of that is, you do that and do good work, and next thing you know, you're getting recommended 10 times on a Facebook thread, right? And like, people know that you're a company that can be trusted because you uphold values, you practice business in your life with integrity. And dude, I would say you're in the vast minority of companies. I guess I'm like naturally a negative person. Like, I have a very cynical view on the world, right? And people arrive at their conclusions based off their experiences and different things. But in my experience, if you've got 100 people in the room, there's more people that are inclined to not be good than to be good. And good's an arbitrary statement, which we could have a whole debate for hours on that, but we're not going to do that.
No kidding.
Dude,
Not
I appreciate what you're doing for the roofing community, man. It's been a great pleasure of mine to be a part of your journey. I look forward to the next few years to come and much longer. Thanks for coming in and shedding some light on these situations and value for the audience, man. I really appreciate having you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, thanks for having me on, and you're too humble, man. A lot of our success is owed to you, brother. You made a huge impact in our business early
Thanks,
on.
brother.
And you continue to, literally every single day. So don't ever downplay what all you did and do for us, even outside of marketing, man. I mean
Thank you.
I really am truly grateful for you, brother.
I appreciate that. Let's keep this party rocking. Episode 3, we're out.